We're talking some NFL here in this segment. Very pleased to now be joined by a writer for ESPN Chicago.com. You can follow him on Twitter.com/Mike C. Wright. It is Mike C. Wright. Hey, Mike, how you doing?
Pretty good, man. How are you, Matthew?
Well, very well, thanks. Thanks for taking some time this evening. I know it's obviously a busy time of the year, especially for ESPN Chicago with the firing of a longtime coach there in Lovie Smith. We'll get to your thoughts on some of the playoffs, but right away off the bat, did you expect this from a 10-6 team to fire the coach?
Boy, it's funny because when you look at it, when you look at the different perspectives, like if you look at it from a national perspective, all around the country, it seems like everybody is really surprised by what happened with Lovie Smith. But here locally, it's kind of the sentiment of about time. And I'm not saying that I personally felt like, hey, it's about time. I'm just saying that that's kind of, it's weird how different the perspectives are on it. Here locally, it seemed like the last couple of years he's been on the hot seat. I mean, when he signed a new deal 2 years ago, I remember the first question at his press conference was about him being on the hot seat. And, and I'm just sitting there, I'm like, really? This guy just signed a new contract and you're asking him about being on the hot seat? So it seems like it's been that way for him for a while because, over the last 9 years, his teams just have never really lived up to expectation. He took them to the NFC Championship twice, made the playoffs one more time. But, 3 playoff appearances in 9 years in Chicago, that's not going to get it. And so, it wasn't much of a surprise out here, but, I get it. I mean, 10-6, and not only that, when you look at how they went 10-6, I mean, they started 7-1, had a bit of a collapse, but also personnel was a big issue in my mind. I mean, your offensive line was horrible. I mean, your 2 best offensive linemen are average players. And when you've got 2 average players as your best offensive linemen, that's not going to get it done.
Chatting with Mike C. Wright of ESPN Chicago.com, talking obviously about the Bears situation. I guess they're not bringing back Dick Geron either, right?
No, and Mike Ditka is not walking through that door either.
I'm a Bronco fan, so I'm well familiar with Jay Cutler and rooting for him, against him, and in the trials and tribulations of having him as your quarterback with all that comes with it. But do the Bears fans like this guy genuinely? I mean, you remember obviously the hubbub of him on the sidelines standing when he had a leg injury and all that kind of stuff. I mean, does some of this rest on his shoulders according to the fans, or is everybody just saying, okay, well, it was Lovie Smith, now we just need a new coach and everything else is fine?
No, yeah, it was Lovie. I mean, believe it or not, in Chicago, the fan base loves Jay Cutler, and nothing is ever his fault. I'm serious here. And, it's baffling to me because the body of work speaks for itself. I mean, the guy's been in the league 7 years, and my question is, what has he won? Okay, the Denver Broncos, you're a Broncos fan, so you remember when they were number 2 in the league in offense.
Yep.
And they went 8-8. They didn't win anything. So then the excuse is, well, it was the defense. Denver's defense wasn't all that good. Well, they had a chance to win. If I'm not mistaken, didn't they have a chance to win the division? And Jay basically laid an egg like the last.
Yeah, it was at home against San Francisco. That's right. Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great memory of yours. Yeah, no, he never got it done. I don't know. I don't get it. I don't get it.
That's the funny thing about it. No, there's always a built-in excuse for him. Like a couple years ago, it was the offensive line. Obviously, was a problem. Okay, and it was Mike Martz's system. So you fire Mike Martz. You bring in Mike Tice as offensive coordinator. And also, let me go back and say, it was also weapons. He didn't have enough weapons. He didn't have enough weapons. And in my mind, the best quarterbacks out there, they make the guys around them better.
Right.
And then another part of it is that teams do not trade franchise quarterbacks. I don't care what gets said. I don't care that he and Josh McDaniels had whatever problem they had, but franchise quarterbacks don't get traded. The GM will step in and say, hey, Josh, you've got to stay with this guy. So, those were a couple of strikes in my mind. But anyway, they bring in Brandon Marshall. They finally get him this weapon he needs. They change the offense for him. And it's the same thing. I mean, the results are the same. The offense does not put points on the board. And then now Lovey is the problem. So now that Lovey's going to end up going, they're going to end up hiring a new coach. And if Jay underperforms again, I'm wondering what the next excuse is going to be for him.
Yeah, that's a great point. You think about a guy like Donovan McNabb who struggled with, Freddie Mitchell and Todd Pinkston and all these receivers, and he made them better. And somehow Cutler gets off the hook. All right, elsewhere in the NFL, obviously the 4 playoff games are in the books. None of them were altogether, riveting, but certainly some storylines have come out of all of those games. Certainly RG3, got a feel for him. Reports saying that maybe he wasn't cleared, and you saw him hobbling on and off the field. I mean, that's kind of just sad, isn't it? I mean, you look at what the Vikings did in putting in Joe Webb and not trying it with Christian Ponder. You got to figure, well, maybe they should have done the same thing in Washington.
Hey, I'm in total agreement with you, Matthew. And the funny thing, you were asking me about Bears fans. Well, just now on Twitter, I got just ransacked by Bears fans comparing RG3 to Jay Cutler. And I'm like, what does Jay have to do with this? We're not even talking about Jay Cutler. Jay Cutler's watching right now. He's not a participant in the playoffs. But anyway, the situation with RG3, I mean, gosh, man, you and I both know that players are always going to say, hey, I'm good, I can go. But you, as a coach, it's your job to save him from himself because, you don't know if Shanahan jeopardized RG3's future and his own future by the decision he made today. So, yeah, I mean, it's a tough deal for him. And I really hated to see, on the play, when they showed the replay, when he was going down to get the fumble and the knee bent back. I mean, when you saw that, it was just like, this guy has zero stability in that knee. And he played all this time up to this point, and, he hasn't gone down before now. So that was amazing. But, there's a fine line between being courageous and just being stupid. And, I think Shanahan should have pulled him when they got up 14-0.
Yeah, I agree as well. Chatting with Mike C. Wright of ESPN Chicago.